Good morning and welcome back to our news update coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Sally Jastrzębska. In the beginning of a breaking development, 2 people were injured in a Russian airstrike on the port city of Odesa on Saturday morning. The attack sparked several blazes, which were then brought under control by Ukraine's fire services. In the aftermath of the strike, several administrative buildings sustained damage to the roofs and facades, and some 11 trucks were hit as well. On Friday, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said it had downed 95 of the 115 drones launched by Russia. Moscow has of late doubled down on its attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure ahead of the coming winter. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk is warning Washington not to bypass his government in peace talks over Ukraine, insisting that any decisions affecting Poland must be made by the Polish people. His remarks follow reports that the US-supported peace plan for Ukraine includes stationing European jets on Polish territory.
All decisions concerning Poland will be made by the Poles. Nothing about us without us. When it comes to peace talks, all negotiations should include Ukraine. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
This was Polish PM Donald Tusk's reaction to the US-Russia peace plan proposal for Ukraine. The 28-point document explicitly mentions there would be European fighter jets stationed on Poland's territory, a proposal which could threaten Poland's sovereign decision-making on its defense.
It is obvious from what I'm reading right now, this some kind of a plan, or if you want, ideas outlined on the paper, are quite disadvantageous to Ukraine and to European security.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said Europe's interest must be considered in the course of the negotiations.
As Europe, we demand to be included in these decisions. Also, it is not the victim's ability to defend themselves that should be limited, but the aggressor's ability to attack.
The gravity of the situation led Prime Minister Tusk to deliver a speech in the Polish parliament on Friday morning, aimed at the right-wing opposition. Along with the Eurosceptic President Karol Nawrocki, Tusk laid out what he called his 5 commandments.
Do not repeat the lies of Russian propaganda. Do not undermine trust in the Polish army and Polish security services, and do not interfere with their efforts. Do not weaken the state and its cohesion through legislative sabotage, including the modern Liberum veto. Do not undermine European unity. Be on the side of a strong West, not Russia. Stand by Ukraine in its war with Russia, without any ifs or buts.
The Prime Minister's statement comes in the wake of this week's Russia-linked explosions on Polish train lines, dubbed state-sponsored terrorism by Foreign Minister Sikorski.
When the intention of espionage and sabotage is to cause casualties, then we are no longer dealing with sabotage, but in fact with state terror. So, although this isn't what our response will be limited to, I have already decided to withdraw authorization for the operation of the Russian consulate in Gdańsk.
But not everyone agrees with that decision, including the leader of the far-right Confederation of the Polish Crown Party, Grzegorz Braun, who published a letter which he reportedly sent to the Polish foreign minister and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, urging Warsaw and Kremlin to cease their hostile behavior against one another, while not condemning the latest act of Russian hybrid warfare. And while Poland is seeking to enforce Europe's interests, government officials emphasize it's key to first arrive at a consensus at home.
American Vice President JD Vance is defending the administration's proposed Ukraine-Russia peace framework, arguing that critics are ignoring the realities on the ground. He says any agreement must halt the fighting and prevent the war from reigniting. Here's what he said.
Any Ukraine-Russia peace plan has to stop the killing while preserving Ukrainian sovereignty, be acceptable to both Russia and Ukraine, maximize the chances the war doesn't restart. Every criticism of the peace framework the administration is working on either misunderstands the framework or misstates some critical reality on the ground. There is a fantasy that if we just give more money, more weapons or more sanctions, victory is at hand. Peace won't be made by failed diplomats or politicians living in a fantasy land. It might be made by smart people living in the real world.
Trump's peace plan looks as if it were dictated by Vladimir Putin, according to Democratic U.S. Congressman Eugene Vindman. In an interview with the Polish press agency, he explained that the proposal essentially amounts to Ukraine's capitulation. The Ukraine-born politician said the plan is, quote, absolutely unacceptable, adding that Russia would take advantage of it to rebuild and strengthen its military capabilities. But on the other side of the political spectrum, one could also hear voices critical of Trump's plan. Republican representative of Nebraska, Don Bacon, branded the proposal unacceptable, equating it with the Munich Agreement, which allowed for the German annexation of part of Czechoslovakia and effectively paved the way for World War II. Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, for his part, commented on his social media that, quote, this moment requires peace through strength, not appeasement. Tatiana Shevchuk of Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Action Center says the country's major corruption scandal has given both the US and Russia an opening to advance their peace plan, a proposal she believes is highly unfavorable for Kyiv.
We had this corruption revelations, which hit really hard to people's morale. And now it looks like US is pressuring us not for a peace, but for negotiated surrender. And because this peace plan is not a peace plan, it's about its capitulation right now. I think that correlation is a bit reversal, that we had this corruption scandal, and it really weakened inner position of President Zelensky, and it felt like a huge political crisis inside of Ukraine. Therefore, Russia and the US decided to push this peace plan because they felt Ukraine's weakness right now.
And now on a home front, on Friday, the Polish military launched an anti-sabotage campaign called Operation Horizon. This comes after 2 acts of railway sabotage took place over the past weekend in eastern Poland.
Operation Horizon started in the early hours of Friday. Polish soldiers are monitoring railway lines and transport hubs across the country.
Our objectives are first to support the activities of the security agencies subordinate to the Interior Minister, second to prevent acts of sabotage, and third to restrict freedom of operation and introduce additional unacceptable risks for potential saboteurs.
Several branches of the Polish military are taking part in the large-scale operation, including territorial defense forces, special forces, cyberspace defense forces, as well as engineering and drone forces.
This also includes equipment, drones, helicopters, everything that will make our railways safer.
It's Poland's response to recent acts of sabotage targeting Polish railways, which Polish authorities call Russian state terrorism.
Sabotage acts, inspired and directly organized by the Kremlin for many months, have recently crossed a critical threshold and now amount to state terrorism. Their aim is to endanger people's lives and destabilize the foundations of the Polish state. Internal non-military operations by the armed forces are very much needed in such situations.
Up to 10,000 Polish troops are expected to take part in Operation Horizon.
Poland's Orlen and Ukraine's Naftogaz have signed an agreement setting out the framework for a future gas supply contract. The Polish company will deliver over 300 million cubic meters of gas to its Ukrainian partner. The fuel will originate from American LNG shipments received by Orlen. In the first quarter of the year, Ukraine will receive 300 million cubic meters of natural gas from 3 separate shipments originating from the US. Orlen noted that these deliveries will come on top of the 600 million cubic meters the company has already supplied this year. The agreement with Orlen is the third gas supply deal Ukraine has announced over the past week, following similar arrangements with Greece and Lithuania. Ukraine's search for alternative sources of supply comes as the embattled country races to secure sufficient energy ahead of the winter. The push comes amidst increased Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which in October knocked out more than half of the country's domestic natural gas supply. Now to a major shift in Serbia's energy landscape. Russian shareholders are moving to sell their 56% stake in the oil company NIS. The Serbian energy minister has confirmed the move, but says the buyer's identity remains under wraps as talks continue. November 25th marks the deadline for the government to decide on the company's future. More in this report.
After several weeks of uncertainty, major shareholder Gazprom is in talks to offload its controlling stake in Serbia's Nis refinery. And President Aleksandar Vučić is desperate to get the deal done.
I know of 3 partners with whom they are negotiating. We will see whether they complete the sale with one of them or not. I hope they will. It's in our best interest that this sale is completed as soon as possible.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Abu Dhabi National Oil Company is among the potential buyers. And a source familiar with the matter told TVP World British energy giant BP is also in the race. Washington wants the complete removal of Gazprom, a 56% shareholder, setting a mid-February 2026 deadline for the takeover. Meanwhile, Belgrade is hoping to broker a deal with the US, seeking the resumption of Russian oil deliveries, at least for the time being.
NIS has submitted a request through its lawyers in the United States to the US government for an extension of the operating license, which means that it would be able to continue to supply crude oil, so that the refinery can continue to operate. And we are now waiting for the decision of the US government.
And time is of the essence. The Pančevo refinery is the only one providing the country of 6 million with fuel. With banks refusing to process Nis's payments in fear of sanctions, the refinery is set to run out of oil on November 25. If negotiations fail, Vučić says Serbia, which currently owns some 30% of Nis, has the cash to make a full takeover. But Russia doesn't want that to happen.
We cannot even insist on the right of preemption, which as a minority partner you have the right to, because the Russians will say that this is not a voluntary but a forced sale, so they ask to be able to sell to whoever they want.
In a similar case related to Russian ownership and US sanctions, Bulgaria made a swift move to nationalize its formerly Lukoil-owned Burgas refinery. Hungary, along with Slovakia, managed to secure a 1-year exemption from the US to keep Russian oil flowing.
The Warsaw Stock Exchange's main indexes turned red on Friday. Economists named the Ukraine war peace plan, along with the overvaluation of US tech stocks, as the main drivers of the slump. The VIC20 index, listing the WSE's top 20 companies, finished trading 1.25% in the red, with energy company Orlen and copper giant GHM among the main losers. PKO BP analyst Mariusz Adamiak says investors are selling because they fear US stocks, especially fast-growing tech and AI companies like Nvidia, are overvalued. Many also doubt the US Federal Reserve will cut interest rates in December. Additionally, markets in Poland are trembling after news of a prevented terror attack, as well as confusion over what kind of Ukraine peace deal investors are betting on. Adamek says a ceasefire could help markets in the short term, but a bad peace could raise long-term political risks in the region. And now time for some sports news. The ski jumping World Cup opened on Friday with a mixed team event in Norway. Team Poland, featuring triple Olympic champion Kamil Stoch, 18-year-old newcomer Kacper Tomasiak, and jumpers Anna Twardosz and Nicole Konderla-Juroszek, finished in 6th place. Both Stoch and Tomasiak performed well, finishing 7th and 11th respectively in the unofficial final standings among the male ski jumpers. This bodes well ahead of the first men's individual competition to be held on Saturday. A total of 9 male and female Polish ski jumpers will have a chance to win a spot to compete in Norway's main event after qualifications. This season will culminate in the 2026 Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina in Italy. For Kamil Stoch, who in the past won 2 World Cup seasons, 2025-2026 will be his last. Ski jumping is Poland's most popular winter sport. And with this, we conclude our news bulletin. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more.